In a way, the company our little dog provided did not affect my nerves as much as I first thought it would. The canine didn't get in my way at all, and in fact I found it somewhat uplifting that after each slap or blow I gave someone, the supernatural being gave a happy yelp of approval. Admittedly, this meant that I did go a little overboard compared to what I would usually do, so I had this newfound urge to impress. Such feelings were all new to me and actually didn't feel as degrading as I initially thought it was going to be. Once I had my money, I shot off and bought 5 wood-fired pizzas from a takeaway. I plonked myself just outside the restaurant's wall and messily ravaged the lot of them. The little dog had disappeared by this point, but as if by instinct, the supernatural being reappeared as I was ventured out to earn more money, and this time for my libido as it had been reinvigorated. When I had acquired enough pennies and provided the little dog with some further entertainment, I headed to the red light district, visibly on full mast. Even with a trench coat on, it was obvious what was on my mind. This time, the supernatural being tagged along and even watched the sex. At times, when I looked over whilst having my way, I noticed the clear interest on my dog's face. One of her prostitutes thought it disconcerting, but I assured her that little dog was not going to join in, that there was nothing to worry about. Finally, after these 2 needs were filled, I was able to think again with a clear head. That is when I thought it appropriate to see if the supernatural being had fulfilled its side of the deal. This meant a trip to the library. Forgive me, little dog, but it's still quite a difficult prospect to grasp. Also, trust is of course earned and not simply given, I said as we walked.
Have you not earned the trust of your own senses? It really isn't a difficult concept, my dear chap. You saw it for yourself. If it makes you feel better, foe, let's go down to the library. As it is I, although I haven't the foggiest idea what you'll find there.
Little dog replied with some incredulity. There was a considerable walk to the closest library, as there was increasingly fewer and fewer in Manchester. Access to knowledge was slowly becoming the privilege of the few. When I reached it, I immediately sought a computer to check the internet for all news outlets that might have reported on the court case. There were many news stories, but only in relation to the court, but as only in relation to the missing staff and the fact that no one knew how they had disappeared. It was also noted that the violent criminal, that was me, was missing. Then there was a related public uproar about how the authorities has let this happen, and how there's absolutely no visual evidence to describe what I, the mad, violent fugitive, looked like. I repeatedly refreshed the internet browser over the space of a couple hours, but still no significant evidence of what actually occurred within Crown Court appeared. Even with this clear-as-day proof, I was still apprehensive about little dog's offer. Of course, there were natural anxieties about the fantastic situation, but there's also a feeling that there's going to be a con in the deal. Was I going to be left twiddling my thumbs as malevolent forces sought retribution against me? I was just about to further question the self-proclaimed deity when a librarian suddenly appeared and berated me in the quietest possible way. "Excuse me, sir, I'm afraid you're not allowed any pets in here," she hissed. The librarian turned to the little dog and gave it a compassionate look. She then looked at me with a disgusted and disapproving face. "Poor little thing," she muttered. The little dog, who had been lying down on the desk, perked his head up, slowly got up, stretched, and then looked round to see if there was anyone else about. It then licked its lips as it looked the old plump librarian up and down.
"My dear, you smell absolutely delightful."
The little dog chuckled with an almighty vicious grin on its face. The briefest look of horror erupted on the librarian's face, but it quickly returned to a disapproving scowl. "Quite the juvenile joke, that. I'm afraid rules are the rules, and you must follow them."
"Look out the way, that fat wobbles on your jowls as you talk. Looks so very succulent, but I really shouldn't. I mean, I dread to think of the number of calories that you are. You'll go straight to my hips."
This time it was clear to the librarian I hadn't said a word. What? Don't be daft. Is this a prank? Is this some kind of robot?" she stammered.
"Well, clearly you want me to, as you keep on strutting your meat right there in front of me. I suppose quite understandable, as it is a privilege to be eaten by a god. Anyhow, I would hate to be rude and refuse your request."
The dog's jaw and mouth rapidly multiplied in size as his head melted into a floating black liquid with one vicious snouted mouth attached. It grew until it was just a bit bigger than the librarian. The colour completely drained from her face. It's just a silly prank, a very silly prank, she said as her jaws and sharp teeth surrounded her. A muffled scream came just before the first chomp. A split second later, little dog's head shrank back to its regular self, and the sound of crunching bone could be heard as the canine slowly chewed its snack.
Must always remember to eat slowly and savour, otherwise a moment is simply gone too fast.
I raised an eyebrow. I had watched the events in mild discomfort. It seemed that a great deal of my previous anxiety from watching such brutality had turned into more of a morbid fascination. I suppose I felt that it wasn't every day that one gets to watch an alleged deity devour people, so there was some interest there, and I didn't really have a choice in the matter. Soon after, a confused-looking member of the public came into view. "Sorry, I thought I heard a scream," he said before disappearing after I gave him a scowl.
I know. I said my role was just to observe and ensure that no evidence leads back to you, but sometimes I simply can't control myself. I do get rather peckish at times. I suspect, my good chap, that I have opened the floodgates and I'll have to chomp on a few more, as the librarian really was quite marvellous. I really do recommend that you give human meat a try, my dear boy.
Little dog mused. I turned back to the computer and checked a few other websites. As obnoxious as Little Dog was, it appeared that it was sticking to its side of the deal. I turned back to the canine and stared at it as it vigorously licked at its nondescript crotch. It felt rude to interrupt, so I waited until it noticed me.
Yes, my good chap.
I suppose it is a silly question, but for some reason I am curious about this. Do you feel remorse?
What do you mean, Cain?
For me to harm or kill, I need a good reason. I don't think I've ever committed violence without a purpose to it all. If I did what you did just there, I think I would probably regret it.
Did you not hear me before? I was peckish. Bloody fantastic reason that. I could paint you 1,000,001 fanciful explanations why I don't feel remorse, and fill them all with impervious legitimacy, but that would not be me. Perhaps you would think differently if you had a taste. I can save you a bit of fire next time if you want.
As curious as I am about how human would taste, there's a part of me that just wouldn't let it happen. So thank you, but no thank you. I thought a being as powerful as you wouldn't need to eat to sustain yourself.
Ha! You sly little rascal. You're still trying to find a weakness, I see. Of course I don't need to eat humans or anything at all, to be honest. I suppose you want the most basic reason for it, there's just a pass for time. It's quite a fun thing to do. Perhaps in a few 100 billion years I'll get bored of it, but for now it's a bit of a hobby, and by Jove I can't give it up when humans are such a tasty lot. Any more questions?
I suppose with the supernatural now seemingly the norm, it has given me more of a curiosity with regard to religion again. I might as well ask of a monotheistic God that encompasses all. Does it exist? The supernatural being gave a yawn before it replied.
It depends on what your understanding of existence is and what a god is. Unfortunately, you only have one lifetime, and it'll take far more than that for me to truly explain such simple concepts to you. Also, I couldn't provide you with a reply that you would understand, since it isn't a yes or no answer. I would need to speed up your evolution and then teach you a completely new language, my dear boy. English is much too clumsy to even express the most basic of points. Your mathematics and physics are only slightly more expressive, but they still negate the most complex fundamentals. So unfortunately with your languages and your level of comprehension, I can only answer with a yes, there is, and a no, there isn't.
Blood rushed to my head and my fists, as I was still not used to such condescending interactions. I knew there was no point in being aggressive, so in the end I only huffed.
By all means, continue with a theological or philosophical questions, but you'll find that you're simply not capable of understanding many of the answers. Not that you're stupid, my dear boy. Compared to other humans, you're relatively intelligent. It's just that your speech is quite dim overall. Anyhow, now that we have nattered about theology, how about you tell me what your plans are, Cain?
The dog said with slightly more tact. I let out a sigh, as I didn't feel that the alleged deity would give me any meaningful answers to my questions. I suppose there is some difficulty in deciding where to start, little dog. There are, of course, a lot of people on the list who I want to die, but now I am put on the spot, I can't seem to decide on a single one. I feel that although my campaign is on the go, we'll certainly get to that. I still need to test the waters some more, just to get a feeling of which direction the current is going.
For all my bluster, I'm quite an easygoing one, Cain. I'll of course let you decide and we can go from there. It helps perhaps think of those who wronged you when you were young and less capable.
The first person that popped into my head was my father, but I did not have the foggiest clue of his whereabouts or even if he was still alive. There's always the police station. It could be quite a joyful romp, I said, though without much enthusiasm. As fun as it sounded, it seemed an idea that didn't suit the occasion. For my idea had far too much emotional resonance and the latter had far too little. There was, of course, a middle ground somewhere in all of this.
Fighting for law again. I'm sure that is an idea that would entertain, but I'm sensing it isn't something that you're particularly enthused about. Perhaps something for which you feel a bit more passion. As you said just now, you need a good reason for such violence.
The canine goaded. I had only begun to pout for a brief second when my mind struck gold. Ah, yes, little dog, I'd forgotten about this most wretched of places.
Oh, do please tell, Cain.
It's a horrible little pub that I actually set fire to once when I was somewhat younger. Unfortunately and surprisingly, it was a pub that had adequate fire escape so no one perished. The clientele of this most deplorable of places was the type of crowd who took a disliking to people like me for not being a few shades paler.
Ho, ho! You humans are such a marvellous bunch. An excuse to hurt each other. It's so very entertaining. Do tell me more, Cain.
Well, I decided to set this pub alight because the patrons weren't the most friendliest of sorts. They had opted to ridicule my fashion and what they perceived my race to be as I walked by. As I was far too concerned about scoring my next heroin fix, I merely responded to a few expletives and went on my way. They didn't take too kindly to that, though, so they attacked me by surprise. As there was just too many and I was already in a wretched state, I was badly beaten and left for dead. Also, embarrassingly, I was drenched in their urine.
My dear boy, that sounds quite, what's the word? Hilarious. So you've not sought revenge since you set the pub on fire?
Well, little dog, once I'd burned the pub down, I did not know where I could go next to pursue these individuals as I destroyed their spot for congregation. Also back then, as chemical hedonism was my top priority, I did not fancy putting huge efforts into aimlessly searching the area for them, and it was not long until I simply forgot about it. It was only recently, a day before I started my bumblebee campaign, that by chance I came across the old pub, standing there as nothing had happened to it at all. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to investigate as I had far more pressing matters to attend to. Rather than waiting for a supernatural being to respond, I quickly spun around in my chair to face the computer and type the pub's name into the search engine. Well, according to the local news and social media, still is a place filled with such far-right dregs. I think we have a winner, little dog, I said with surprising enthusiasm. I did feel a bit odd afterwards, as I assumed the process of planning mass murder would have at least given me some ethical misgivings, but I felt none at all. In response, the little dog barked in excitement and wagged its tail. There wouldn't be much use in walking on down straight away, it's much too early. I imagine mid-evening would be the time to make our move, little dog. Till then I'm going to do something I've not been able to do for quite a while. I haven't read a book in such a long time, and we are of course in a library. I know you've had to put up with me getting food and dabbling in a prostitute or two, but I assure you that you will see some very interesting violence later.
Don't worry, my good fellow. I'll pop back when you're ready. See you soon, and please do enjoy the reading.
Little dog replied with a face-ripping grin.